And the World Trade Organization recently announced the regional vaccine manufacturing hubs in 4 African countries, including Nigeria and South Africa. Well, how promising is this path to future pandemics? Joining us right now is Mr. Sam Ohuabunwa, President, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. He joins us from our Abuja studio. Thank you for joining us on the program.
Thank you, Millicent. Good evening, Nigerians.
Let's begin by getting your thoughts on the vaccination drive across the country. What do you think about it? How do you feel about the processes so far?
Well, I would like to think that the effort has been reasonable and also a measured success achieved. But if I use my own experience, I still believe that a lot more needs to be done because my experience was the first time I logged in. I was booked into a health center. I went to the health center. The health center was not functional. So I had to find my way to some other places, and it took quite some processing. I had to start calling people that I knew who could assist me to get vaccinated at that center. When I went for my second dose, I was stopped at the gate and I was asked, "Are you coming for your first or second dose?" I said, "I'm coming for the second dose." And then they had to check me and clarify that that was what I was coming to do, kept me aside before. For me, those are normal processes, but what I feel is that if we need to truly deal with hesitancy, we should bring some motivation. When I did my first COVID test in the United States, the moment I finished the test, they offered us packs of food, flowers, and all kinds of things as incentive and motivation perhaps for me to come a second time. So I think that the hesitancy we're dealing with in Nigeria, we need to do more than just what we've done. But if you ask me, I think that the government has tried, haven't remained consistent on the message from the beginning to now. But in terms of motivating people for vaccination, and of course, some who went recently to get vaccinations were turned down, presumably because what was brought in March will not be able to be useful after a couple of weeks. And so those people, the focus was to finish the first group of people. And I think so more effort needs to be made to get the vaccines, and then thereafter create some motivations, including expanding the roles and the sites where people can get vaccinated.
I'm sure that on the part where you talked about incentives, the authorities are listening, but calls to scale up vaccine production capacity in Africa, they're growing louder. Does the continent have the capacity to produce vaccines, seeing as we're having these regional production hubs coming up in some African countries?
Well, in theory, there is some capacity in Africa. Certainly, that capacity is limited, very, very limited. Maybe in Egypt, maybe in Senegal, and South Africa. Elsewhere, I'm not sure. Nigeria certainly, for now, does not have the capacity in terms of the site to produce vaccines. Human vaccines. I must admit that Nigeria is producing animal vaccines at the Veterinary Research Institute in Vorm. They're producing vaccines for animals. But for human, the only lab we had in Yaba has been moribund, and effort to resuscitate it through some mechanisms have not quite worked out. So right now, Nigeria does not have the capacity in terms of available site. They may have the personnel because we have health scientists, pharmaceutical scientists, pharmacists, biomedical scientists, microbiologists, and people who know how to research and produce vaccines. But the facility, because it's a very, very highly regulated production process, it must be at the higher levels of GMP, and this kind of plant cannot be set up in 1 day or 1 week. It will take you, with all the money you can get a a vaccine plan running in under 1 year. And I do not see anyone in motion as at now. So capacity is limited all over Africa, but I believe that a few countries are better. Those 3 countries or 1 or 2 others are better primed than Nigeria to be able to produce vaccines. However, it's still better to have some sites in Africa. I hope that it will be easier to get vaccines from South Africa or from Cairo or from Senegal than waiting for it to come from the UK or elsewhere in Europe or in the United States. But the capacity today is insufficient and continues to call back to the fact that Africa especially needs to get its acts together, put its money in the areas that are critical. We can't continue to depend on the world for everything. For many years, we've been doing childhood vaccinations, polio, tuberculosis, diphtheria, measles, and we are just depending on the world to give us the global funds to produce. And so it's becoming, for me, a big challenge that Africa needs to wake up and take responsibility for the health of its citizens and not depending on foreign aid and foreign help all the time. We should come of age.
We'd like to thank you for indeed all you've said on this particular issue. Thank you so much, Mr. Sam Ohuabunwa, President, Pharmaceutical Society of Nigeria. Always a pleasure having you on the program.
Thank you very much.